Hey, curious minds. Today we're diving into a question that's puzzled economists, politicians, and probably your uncle at Thanksgiving. Why is Africa, a continent swimming in resources, still struggling with poverty? Buckle up, because MIT's latest study is about to flip your perspective faster than a Zambian police officer can holster their non-existent gun. First up, let's talk geography. Africa isn't just big, it's the "I can't believe it's not photoshopped" kind of big. It's so massive that you could fit the USA, China, India, and most of Europe inside it and still have room for a few Disneylands. To put it in perspective, if Africa were a pizza, Europe would be a single pepperoni. That's right, we're talking about a continent so vast it makes other continents feel like they should hit the gym. But size isn't everything, that's what Europe tells itself. Africa's got a pesky problem called the Sahara Desert. Imagine a giant, sandy middle finger to progress, effectively cutting the continent in half. It's like nature's way of saying, "No trade for you," to sub-Saharan Africa for centuries. This massive desert isn't just a big beach without an ocean. It's a major roadblock to development. It's so big that if it decided to take a vacation in the US, it would cover the entire country. Talk about an unwelcome house guest. And let's not forget the landlocked countries. Being landlocked in Africa is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. You're already at a disadvantage. These countries are the introverts of the economic world, finding it hard to join the global trade party. Imagine trying to be the life of the party when you're stuck in the bathroom. That's what being landlocked in Africa feels like economically. But wait, there's more. Africa's geography throws another curveball: rivers. Now you might think, rivers are great, they're nature's highways. Well, not in Africa. Most of Africa's rivers have these pesky things called cataracts. Not the eye problem, but waterfalls and rapids that make navigation about as easy as trying to swim up Niagara Falls. It's like nature looked at Africa and said, "You know what would be fun? Obstacle courses for boats." Now, onto institutions, or as I like to call it, why Johnny can't build a successful business in some parts of Africa. Imagine trying to build a sandcastle, where every time you turn around, someone kicks it over. That's what weak institutions do to economies. In many African countries, corruption isn't just a bug, it's a feature. It's so prevalent that in some places people avoid success like it's a communicable disease. "Oh no, I can't be too successful. The government might notice." Let's take a moment to appreciate the creativity of corruption in some parts of Africa. It's not your garden variety, slip a $20 to the traffic cop kind of corruption. No, we're talking about corruption so intricate it could be an Olympic sport. You've got your basic bribery, your advanced embezzlement, and for the pros, the make an entire country's resources disappear trick. It's like watching a magic show, except the only thing that disappears is the hope for economic progress. But here's the kicker: corruption in Africa isn't just a local problem. It's got more international connections than an airport. Foreign companies, other governments, even well-meaning aid organizations, they've all played a part in this corruption conga line. It's like the whole world decided to join in on a really messed up potluck, and Africa's development got food poisoning. Let's take a historical detour, shall we? European colonizers swept through Africa like a bad reality TV show, exploiting resources and leaving behind political systems more fragile than a souffle in a wind tunnel. They drew borders like they were playing a drunken game of Risk, lumping together ethnic groups that got along about as well as cats and dogs in a sack. When they left, it was like taking the training wheels off a bicycle, except the bicycle was on fire and the road was made of quicksand. New leaders inherited countries with ethnic divisions deeper than the Mariana Trench and economies more lopsided than a one-legged elephant. It's like being handed the keys to a car, except the car is actually just a cardboard box with "vroom vroom" written on the side. Now about those famous African resources. Turns out, having a basement full of diamonds isn't always a ticket to the economic big leagues. It's called the resource curse, and it's about as fun as it sounds. Countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo are sitting on a fortune that would make Scrooge McDuck blush. yet their people are poorer than church mice. It's like winning the lottery, but setting the ticket on fire while your corrupt uncle watches and takes selfies. The resource curse is like being the kid with all the toys, but no friends to play with. These countries have all these valuable resources, but instead of using them to build strong, diverse economies, they become overly dependent on them. It's like trying to build a balanced diet out of nothing but chocolate. Sure, it sounds great at first, but eventually you're going to have some serious problems. And it's not just an African problem. The resource curse has played out in places like Venezuela and parts of the Middle East. But in Africa, the problem is magnified by weak institutions that allow for this kind of exploitation on a massive scale. It's like giving a pyromaniac a flamethrower and acting surprised when things catch fire. But wait, before you close YouTube and go cry into your ethically sourced coffee, there's hope. Enter Botswana, the overachiever of the African economic class. Botswana took one look at the post-colonial mess and said, "Nah, we're doing this our way." They built institutions stronger than vibranium, invested in education like it was going out of style, and managed their diamond wealth so well that other countries are taking notes. A Botswanan resident, let's call him Thabo, who lived in the US for most of his 20s says, "We're winning. Things really work. Not perfect, but it works. There's clear upward mobility, complemented by our fairly functional education and justice system." Thabo loves his country so much he probably has "I Botswana" tattooed somewhere. Botswana's success isn't just a fluke, it's a blueprint. They looked at corruption and said, "Not today, Satan." They took their diamond wealth, and instead of using it to build solid gold statues of the president, looking at you, certain other countries, they invested it in boring but important things like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. It's like they actually read the How to Develop a Country manual instead of using it as a coaster. And Botswana isn't alone in making progress. Countries like Rwanda and Ghana are also stepping up their game. They're like the montage sequence in a sports movie. You can see the improvement happening before your eyes. These countries are proving that with the right leadership and policies, Africa can indeed rise above its challenges. Now let's talk about technology, because it's not all doom and gloom. Africa is leapfrogging some traditional development stages thanks to technology. Take mobile banking, for instance. While the West was still arguing about whether checks were outdated, many African countries jumped straight to mobile payments. It's like watching your grandpa struggle with email while your little cousin is coding apps in her sleep. This technological leap is creating opportunities that weren't there before. Suddenly, a farmer in rural Kenya can check market prices on his phone. A student in Nigeria can attend online classes from a top university, and an entrepreneur in South Africa can reach customers across the continent. It's like Africa found a wormhole in the space-time continuum of development. But let's not get too carried away. While technology is opening doors, it's not a magic wand. You still need good governance, strong institutions, and a population that's healthy and educated enough to take advantage of these opportunities. It's like having a superhero suit. Cool, but not very useful if you don't know how to fly. So what's the takeaway? Africa's story isn't over. It's just had a rough first act. With the right mix of strong institutions, smart resource management, and maybe a few less corrupt uncles, Africa could be the next big economic blockbuster. Remember, economic success is like a snowball rolling downhill. Once it starts, it's hard to stop. Africa hasn't had its big break yet, but when it does, watch out, world. In the meantime, countries like Zambia are showing that not all of Africa is a war-torn mess. Some places are so peaceful, you're more likely to see a unicorn than a gun-toting police officer. The real enemy, that pesky corruption that's more persistent than a telemarketer on commission. And let's not forget the role of international cooperation. The world is finally waking up to the fact that a prosperous Africa is good for everyone. It's like the global economy finally realized that leaving a whole continent behind is like trying to win a relay race with one runner tied to a tree. Countries and organizations are partnering with African nations, offering support that goes beyond just throwing money at the problem. It's more like, hey, let's figure this out together, and maybe we'll all benefit in the long run. But here's the thing, change has to come from within too. All the foreign aid and good intentions in the world won't make a difference if there isn't strong leadership and a commitment to real change within African countries. It's like trying to help someone get in shape. You can buy them a gym membership and the fanciest workout clothes. But if they don't actually get off the couch, nothing's going to change. The good news is, there's a new generation of African leaders and entrepreneurs who are sick and tired of the old way of doing things. They're educated, they're connected to the global community, and they're ready to kick some economic butt. It's like watching the start of a revolution, but instead of pitchforks, they're armed with laptops, innovative ideas, and a burning desire to see their countries succeed. So, there you have it, folks. Africa's poverty isn't about lack of resources. It's about geography, history, institutions, and maybe a dash of really bad luck. But with countries like Botswana leading the way, the future could be brighter than a diamond in the Kalahari. Stay curious, and remember, the next time someone asks why Africa is poor, you can dazzle them with more than just colonialism bad, McKay. You can talk about the Sahara's middle finger to progress, the resource curse's cruel irony, and how some countries are flipping the script on their economic destinies. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mind-bending insights. And if you're curious about other potential global shakeups, check out our video on Unveiling the Truth Behind MIT's 2040 Collapse Warning.